And a happy Friday to you. Lanny Ford, Fort Rembert, back in the house. It's been a little while. Things are busy, cold weather. 14 degrees when I came out this morning. And I have stopped that mess of coming in here at 5:30 in the morning, especially if it's cold. I don't even leave the house now till 7:30, 8 o'clock. I get up.
No, I got you.
But I'm sitting there. I can sit there and work at my desk at the house until it warms up and then kind of get things.
It got up to 19 when I came in.
Yeah, it says it's 19 now.
That's unbelievable, dude.
Yeah.
God, that's
it
great.
Is.
So
it is
funny.
cold outside.
So funny.
All right, let's see.
Yeah,
Where do we go?
Well, I mean, we hadn't had a chance to catch up on the. I thought you had good commentary on the college football playoff, but I think there's a lot still to be desired with that. I think people were overall pleased with the two teams that got in, but this is the issue. We have seen that having conference champions is not the way to go.
Did you see the stuff the ACC put out?
No, I haven't seen that yet. They're in trouble.
I know, but here's the thing. They
don't need to put anything out.
Here's the thing, and this is the thing, and it came and kind of reared its ugly head. Is they're looking at fixing or changing their championship game. If you win a regular season, they don't want them in a championship game because it can only hurt you. It can't help you.
But still.
But they need to come up. Everybody needs to play by the same criteria and requirements.
But contracts, TV contracts control that, right? And so that's where we are. And if we're going to play in that world, then getting the best teams in the championship are what we have to do.
But you can't do that now because the conferences are too big.
Well, this is true, but you also need to sift through the stuff and – it's amazing that when it's convenient, apples and oranges are compared, but when it's not convenient or doesn't fit the narrative, then apples and oranges shouldn't be compared.
Right.
I'm a full disclosure. I went to East Carolina. I've got a thing with everybody. Okay. But when I look at things and I look at teams and I look at the way that they do things and how they are. At what point did we start looking at things and saying this loss is worse than this win that was huge? We have an issue. The issue is this. Ole Miss and Alabama both beat Georgia. Mm-hmm. Georgia beat Texas twice. Mm-hmm. All right. South Carolina beat Clemson. All right. In a head-to-head on Clemson's field. Mm-hmm. You see where I'm going with this?
But here's the thing.
There's no way to rectify this the way in the current system.
You can't. Right. There you go. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
You can't fix it.
Right.
Unless everybody kind of has the same setup, so that we still have a ton of apples and oranges.
We do. And as long as we and Nick Saban, the thing that you sent me last night, he's 100% right.
Yeah.
You can't get to where you're supposed to go early without going through the trials, tribulations, and development and expect for something to be sustainable. This whole thing with the NIL is a quick fix. Mm-hmm. Okay, and if they want to do name, image, and likeness, then that needs to be something that is done separately from the football field.
That's what I said. You signed the contract. It's for the kid. It has nothing to do with where you want to school.
Whatever the kid does with that part is on them. But I'm talking about the loyalty to the university or not. Okay. With the rules that you play within if you want to transfer out or go do this instead of chasing the shiny object. That's how the biggest bass get caught because they chase the spinner.
Right.
How does that work out for the bass?
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Okay, it's no different. Okay, it's no different. It's just like in the spiritual and physical world. Mm-hmm. Who controls Earth right now? Mm-hmm. And then who has the spiritual realm? Mm-hmm. Okay, a lot of shiny objects going on, right? Everything filters into this. There is a time and place and process, and the immediate get rich quick, I'm going to get mine, all of that. That is fine, but that is a stylistic behavior that has no substance behind it. And what it creates is a now and then nothing.
Well, here's what's happening.
That's where we are, and people just need to tell the truth.
But here's what's happening. This is what's happening, and it came from the first year of the 12-team playoff. They recognize they have something really good in concept, but they don't have the right meat mechanics to make it work.
No.
So I'll give you a couple other things that I'd like to see fixed that I hope they do. I looked at what they call week 0 for the fall.
Yeah.
There's some big games coming up, okay?
Awesome games.
Which here's my point. Bowl season needs to move to week 0 because then everybody plays. The useless, I hate to say useless bowls, but the bowls that do not have an effect on a championship.
They're purposeful because of the meaning and
but there's more people would go to them then.
Behind it, where the excitement is still at the beginning, where when you get bowl season in this around Thanksgiving, Christmas, time, people are traveling, going to the attendance may not be quite as good. So you do have a valid point. It just needs to be flipped.
Okay. The other thing is, here's the other thing.
That's a great point.
The other thing that needs to happen is you talk about the TV contracts with the conference championship games. We're basically down to 4 conferences that have conference championship games that have any effect going into the national championship game. Nobody can convince me that they can't cancel those conference championship games and say we're going to add 4 more games on campus to the playoff instead of those conference championship. More people will tune into that. More people will go to that. There'll be more money made on that. That you can't find very many conference championship games that sell out, that make any money other than what TV has already paid to colleges.
Yeah.
ACC never sells out.
No, I think I will tell you this, and this is truth. When NC State and East Carolina play in Bank of America Stadium, I will say this: if Carolina and Clemson were to play, but that doesn't happen.
That's what I'm saying.
No, to your point. And so, the college football playoff, it was something new. It was a little better than I thought it was going to be, but I still didn't like the first 4 games. They weren't really that good. And then the next week came by and you said, well, here's Boise State. So what we did was we had X amount of games and less than half of them were any good.
Yes.
But yet we're like, oh, the right teams got there. We're so excited. But yet neither one of them were conference champions. So the conference thing does not work if you're going to get the best teams in according to the way that the television contracts are written for the audience to watch.
And
this is where we are.
And the other thing that has to happen that you got to kind of make some adjustments on is you can't – I don't want open dates. The 4 teams that got open dates all lost in the first round. You take 2 weeks off. Take 2 weeks.
Everybody take 2 weeks.
Take 2 weeks and start the playoffs. And the other side 4, whatever you had to do to college football season, it needs to be done. The championship game needs to be done before you start NFL divisional play. Wild card weekend. Because once you get the wild card, like the ratings were down Monday because you had a good solid weekend of NFL football.
Oh, but it just had football like exhaustion, right? And then you had the inauguration, which was terrible planning.
That's the way the dates worked out.
But people had television exhaustion.
Yes.
And they say now, to your point, the way the dates worked out, they planned these things way ahead.
I understand.
Okay?
But the FCS killed it with viewership because there was nothing else on.
Right.
And it was 2 great teams with heritage.
But that is football.
But that's the way you got to do it.
Yeah. There's no fluff. There's no this or who's in this portal or who's going here. We're picking up this player. We're doing this and that. Listen. Nobody wants to watch or hear about that crap.
Right.
Okay? We see a lot of it locally with – some teams picking up things and, well, we're picking up this or this person. Look, people want you to get your football team, all right, and stop going out and cherry picking and everybody just get in there and, I want to play with the best. And, okay, do your job, develop your players, give them opportunities. And if you can't do that, then that's on the player for choosing you, number 1.
Right.
And number 2, you will eventually die. And I don't mean die, but
career.
you eventually, things will eventually implode or just go away because there's no substance to the style you're trying to present.
Yeah.
This is where I'm at. If you go from a substantive angle, you will have much more success, not necessarily in the short term, but in the intermediate and long term because you have something sustainable that is consistent and has truth behind it. That's why the FCS is such a well-viewed, well-enjoyed, very intense. It's like small-town football. There are more people that attend, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, but there are more people that attend small-town football games than these large 4A games where you have 35 and 70 people in the crowd. There's a reason for that.
Well, they got an emotional connection.
Right. There's not too much. Everybody's invested from the time they're 5 years old. And you have an opportunity. So when you have people that transfer in and run around and do all this and do all that and come here and come there, it kind of loses that. It's great for the immediate. Well, I won these games and I did that. Well, yeah, but in the long term, what does that do? It causes disinterest, and then you eventually go away or die, from what you're trying to do. So the wow factor, as we've seen the last 10 years in our society, is just not working long term.
Well, let me ask you this, and I haven't done the research to see if it's completely accurate. The one and done basketball players, that whole concept, that's really kind of played itself out. There's still a few, but what happens is it's found out that it don't work. It doesn't work. It sounded good. It benefited those players, and if the players still want to do it, they can do it. But the teams are looking at it a little bit different. UConn, cannot think of his name.
Hurley.
He don't do it. He wants kids that's coming to play.
Oh, yeah.
And so what I'm getting at is this portal thing, this NIL thing, it too will work itself out on, because right now it's the shiny new object.
Why would you pay that money for a kid to come there that's just going to turn that has nothing? You can turn around.
Well, the other thing is, Scott, we can ask.
Do that?
Bill Benner's going to join us at 9. The other thing that we got to ask is, and they know this and they've recognized this, they got to fix this portal window thing. They got to fix that thing so that it doesn't occur. It can't occur when there's still things going on. I mean, that's the whole thing.
If they will do the portal on January 8th, okay.
Following a championship game.
All right, following a championship game, like you said, if you just finish up early and do it around the 8th or 10th and open the portal for 3 days after that, number one, it makes people think twice about going in because it's only 3 days for you to get picked up. Okay? Now, I know, it needs to be a week. It needs to be. It doesn't even need to be.
You either know you're leaving.
I'm actually giving a lot here. Just saying we need to.
You either know that you're staying or you're leaving. It's that simple.
The other thing is why not just go back to the old transfer rule instead of having a portal? A portal's like a pick, like a lottery. Okay, why not just go back to the old transfer rule and say if you want to leave, okay, and then maybe change it if you go out of conference. You're out of conference, then you can transfer immediately one time without having to sit out. If you go within conference, you have to sit out. That'll bring the conference viability back and make things a little more even across the board. We don't need kids going from Georgia to LSU to Ole Miss to Florida, right? That doesn't need to happen. It's getting ridiculous, and it's really uninteresting, and I've got exhaustion from it.
But that's what I'm saying. That will work itself out because it's going to play out that it doesn't have value. It's got immediate gratification for the kid and the team. But that's when you find out that there's nothing there.
Ridiculous.
The other thing as far as when you talk about conferences, I don't have any compassion is not the word, but I don't really have any compassion for the conferences and what they're allowing to happen because they allow the conferences to get so big that the conference means nothing. A conference, for something to be a conference, everybody that's a member has to have an equal participation. And in football, you don't have it when there's 18 teams.
You're exactly right. Who made the best move of getting out of a conference and getting into another one over the last 20 years? Who do you think it would be? Now, that's a lot to think about, but who do you think that would be?
That did what now?
That got out of one conference and got into another one. Who do you think made the best move?
Oh, gosh, I don't know.
I would have to say Maryland. To get out of the ACC?
Went to the Big Ten.
Yeah.
But they're still irrelevant.
Not necessarily.
I know.
Okay, now this year, we're starting to see things, paying itself out. But what I'm saying is they had no shot in the ACC based on the criteria and the way things are and how crappy it is.
And they were more of a basketball look, too.
Right. And football. So now they've transitioned, all right, and gotten into where they're more football relevant. And eventually, when conferences do get split back out again, they're going to end up in a good place with, some good, some good opportunities and good possibilities. But I would have gotten out of the ACC a long time ago. Like if I was like Clemson or like Carolina or State or, even Georgia Tech, I would have got out of there a long time ago. I tried to go to the Big Ten. The SEC probably wouldn't have took them in, okay? I'd have tried to go to the Big Ten. Get out of there. It's killing you. It's awful.
I would rather see like all of these conferences that are so big now, okay, go back to divisions without a conference championship game and the winners of those divisions, if you got 2 divisions in the SEC and 2 divisions in the Big Ten and 2 divisions, at least everybody inside that division will play each other.
Yeah.
Let them go to the playoffs because at least
got something measurable.
Right.
But that's the problem.
Yeah.
But see, this is what I'm saying. If TV contracts are going to demand the type of money they are, then it is imperative that the best teams get in. Now, there's a lot of bias about, well, I like, this because it's basically because my team got in.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I'm saying? And that's not, from the overall grand scheme of things, that's great for you, the individual fan, but it's not good for the playoff system.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It's just not. I mean, to think that Boise State had any business at all along with SMU – Clemson, I
told you I didn't think they had to be there.
But they
by the requirements they earned it. But that doesn't make it.
This is my problem with that.
Yeah,
and I'm glad they did because we needed some representation, from our area, right? Yeah. But this is the problem with that. Before Clemson even played SMU, what did the committee say? Well, the team's pretty much set.
Yeah.
Well, if they're pretty much set, how did Clemson get in? Well, they won. Because then they weren't set.
They had to take that conference.
What are you telling me?
Yeah.
Don't. Bullcrap,
but
don't do that.
That's the part that I told you where I do not like the committee because they've already eyeballed it and come up with their conclusions before you even finish the season.
But the problem is, it's based on their ideas instead, in what they laid out there for the criteria.
Right.
Instead of saying,
but if you have the right criteria, it plays itself out. You don't have to think about it.
But that's my point. They haven't for the last 20 years.
Oh yeah.
Okay, the BCS is great, but one thing that it never takes into account, is who was hurt when who wasn't. Okay, we took that out when Florida didn't get in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they deserved to be in. They were undefeated.
Florida State,
Florida State. Their best player was hurt.
See,
He was the only one that can make anything happen. And they left Georgia out, who was number 1 all year.
That was back to the 14. But here's the thing.
God.
I don't want any of that to play into it. Okay, for me, I want to go to these divisions.
You can't.
I want the team that wins that division to get a playoff spot.
I agree, but
but here's the deal.
You can't.
Why?
Because it's based on TV contracts.
I know, but they can fix that. They can rewrite that.
The money.
But they'll get more money with that.
They'll get less because the best teams are not in, just like this year.
But how do you say the best team is not in? If you win your division, you got to play for something. You can't go on pedigree. You can't go on conference.
Now, I'm going to use a really bad example.
Okay.
But I'm going to answer your question.
Okay.
And I think your question's valid, very valid. If the Maiden Youth League is in the NCAA and the 12U team wins the championship, do they deserve to go to the college football playoff if they're playing in that division?
Yeah, but that's not apples to apples.
Yes, it is, because it's the same thing as Boise State beating UNLV twice, who was ranked 24th both times, who had no business being ranked 24th, along with Georgia beating Texas twice.
But what you're saying is there's not but about 15, 16 teams that even need to go in.
There's 3 to 4 maybe every year, and that's it. And we've seen that for the last 30 years. The problem is that people cry and whine, present company included, when certain teams don't get in. The thing about me is I don't care if Ole Miss or Alabama get in. I don't care Clemson. I don't care. I just want East Carolina to try to win some football games, okay? Right. Yeah, and I'm glad, by the way, with the East Carolina game, people were like, oh, the sportsmanship, it was so – listen, they're playing football, okay? They're not out there playing, badminton and going to give each other a high five when it's done. They're in hand-to-hand combat.
Yep.
Okay, and it's not about sitting back in our chairs as we get older and philosophizing, and it's for the kids, and we got to do no. It is hand-to-hand combat. They're going to do stupid things because it's an emotional game, and they're not fully developed in the frontal lobe. That's the whole point of getting out there, so you don't kill each other down the road. That's why God allowed man to create sport with the Olympics and everything else, so we can go out and compete on that field instead of fighting on the battlefield. Mm-hmm. So let's stop with the crybaby stuff, okay? That stuff is done. We're getting rid of the crazy. We're going back to the way things ought to be, okay? And I'm talking about sports. It is ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous and absurd, for somebody to comment on that, okay, which is their right to do, but have no validity or backing in anything you're understanding. It is an emotional game. We're trying to teach them to be passionate and subvert the emotion, hold it back so they can focus and become better people, better husbands and fathers in that sport, okay, down the road. That's the whole point. So, no, they did get in a skirmish in the East Carolina-NC State game. That's okay, all right? They need to do that, all right? They need to go through those things. It was a good football game. It wasn't diminished because they got in a scuffle afterwards. As a matter of fact, it finished off what was a great football game and incredibly hard fought. Okay, and I'm sorry, I can explain it for you, but I can't understand it for you. Or I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you. All right, so we need to stop, with all the crazy and get back to what makes sense. Yes, we want good sportsmanship and we want things, but things like that are going to happen from time to time in the heat of battle. And if you've never been in a true fight where you're getting your butt kicked and you got enough gumption to get back up and fight back, then you don't understand what I'm talking about, okay? You can only try to, reason with it. And I hadn't had a chance to say anything about that, but I was so peeved at some of the comments that people had. That just shows the direction of softness of where we've gone. No, I'm not condoning violence. That's ridiculous. But they're doing it in a controlled setting, okay, and they're learning from it. There are consequences for their actions. But that's how you learn and develop and grow.
As long
as
we're
not asking 18-year-olds to be 35-year-olds and make those decisions like we're doing with NIL.
But they can't. But they can't reinforce that it was right.
It was not right, but
it's like planting the flag and all this other stuff.
It happens. You learn from those things.
As long as you fix it and you learn.
Everything is a teachable moment.
Sure,
that is the whole point. People, I truly believe we are spiritual beings in human form. Mm-hmm. That's just me personally. All right? There's a lot of people that, even though I go to church, will say, no, we're human beings and have spiritual part. That's fine. Everybody has what they believe. All right? But I do also believe that we are human in that element, mm-hmm. and that mistakes are going to be made. And I think about the things that I did at 15, 18, 21, 22, right. whatever, versus today. And if I had not made those mistakes, I don't feel like I would be in the position I am today from not intentionally doing things wrong, but learning from along the way. That's what I'm saying. For me to tell you that I hadn't punched somebody in the face on the basketball court would be a lie, because I did. Yeah. I told the guy to quit elbowing me.
Yeah.
He did it again. I just reared back and socked him. Okay? Now would I do that? I say no. Probably not. But the point is you learn from those things. Okay? People getting cheap shot in football, play quarterback.
Yeah. Yep.
I pitched the ball in the option. 3 steps later, dude comes up and takes his forearm, shoves it in my head. Hell, I'm laying around, the ground's going like this. Hey, you got your bell rung, didn't you? Yeah, I can't even see where I'm at. I can't even make it back to the sideline. You see what I'm saying? Like that, all this stuff with this, touchy-feel stuff and everything. Look, the best are the best, and that's just the way it is. And we can name about 6 teams that had no business being in the college football playoff. No business, but you know what? They had to be because of the way the criteria is set up. And as long as we got big TV contracts, everybody's just going to have to cowboy up, and we're going to have to play.
Yeah. Let me take a quick break so I can get Bill on. We'll get his take. He was at the Ohio State game, and we'll have him on just a minute.
Whether it's a sit-down meal or a call-in for the drive-thru, Brookwood Cafe and Catering is the answer. A variety of meats, vegetables, and desserts cooked daily, or a hot sandwich from the grill, they have what you're looking for to satisfy your taste buds. If you need catering from 5 to 500, Brookwood has you covered as well. Stop by Brookwood Cafe and Catering at 202 Providence Mill Road in Maiden. Don't forget breakfast daily till 11 a.m. Open Tuesday 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., Wednesday through Saturday 6 a.m. till 8 p.m., and Sunday from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Call 828-428-8944 to place your order today.
If you ask around, you'll find Burke Mortuary has a reputation for excellence and commitment to value. They've built a reputation of trust for more than 35 years. Burke Mortuary is proud to offer personal attention, meaningful tributes, and the area's most affordable prices. They're also proud to offer you beautiful, state-of-the-art facilities. It's the perfect place to honor your loved one. So when choosing a funeral home, the choice is easy. Choose Burke Mortuary with locations in Maiden and Newton.
Covenant Church began as a vision of just over 100 people in 1984. Since then, Covenant Church has grown and currently located at 2168 Gastonia Highway in Lincoln. The Sunday schedule includes early morning worship at 8:30, Sunday school at 9:45, and morning worship at 10:45. Their ministries extend beyond Sunday. Visit their website at www.covenantchurch.church to see all they have to offer, and better yet, stop by and see for yourself. Covenant Church may be just what you're looking for a new church home. First Federal Savings Bank has been serving Lincoln County since 1940. And as it has been from the beginning, customer service is a priority to First Federal Savings Bank. They want to get to know you by name. First Federal Savings Bank has the convenience, the products, and the services that the larger banks have, but with hometown people that you see throughout your community. Stop in and visit one of their 4 convenient locations and see what First Federal Savings Bank has to offer you. Member FDIC, an equal housing lender.
Untangling your headphones, finding the right remote, saying goodbye to your favorite shirt that hasn't fit in 10 years. Why are simple things sometimes so complicated? Thankfully, with Auto Owners, insurance doesn't have to be one of them. Auto Owners works with independent agents who live in your community and answer when you call, so you can worry about more important things, like finding a new favorite shirt. That's simple human sense.
Call Mooney Insurance in Maiden or East Lincoln Insurance in Denver, or visit mooneyinsurance.com. At Stifel Nicholas, we're committed to offering investors personalized investment guidance. We're a full-service organization with departments staffed with professionals that specialize in a wide range of investment opportunities, from the most conservative to the most aggressive. We strive to give each account, regardless of size, careful, individual attention. Call Fort Rembert today at 828-624-7300. Stifel Nicholas, member SIPC and the New York Stock Exchange. And we're back. Good morning. Glad to have you back here with us. We do each and every Friday. We'll take a trip over to see our good friend Bill Bender. Bill, good morning to you.
Hi, good morning, Lanny.
Great game for you with the championship game.
Oh, it was fun. It was, a good atmosphere. Ohio State certainly deserved it. They played very well, especially on the offensive side of the ball around Will Howard. It was cool to see. Notre Dame, I thought, Bob bit back a little bit, made it a game, but, they were overwhelmed by what was an outstanding game by the Ohio State offense. So credit Chip Kelly, credit Will Howard, credit Ryan Day for really silencing the critics once and for all. It was a great win by the Buckeyes.
I don't think there's any question when you look at the talent that was on the field. Even though, Notre Dame by far has got great talent on the field, it wasn't even close to where Ohio State was. And then the other side that I saw, there were a lot of times, and you kept hearing it in the commentary, there were times when Notre Dame didn't recognize what they needed to do on defense, as far as they were struggling between man and zone, and they couldn't play with the man. They didn't have the athletes to play with the man in the secondary. And then when they went to zone, they gave them so much cushion it didn't matter. Or did you see it that way?
Yeah, but look who they're guarding.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying they were out-athleted.
Yeah, I think so. And they had the good opening drive where it was clear at that point. You're thinking they know that they have to play a little bit of keep away, and they did, and it didn't work for a while. And then Ohio State, it just, when you score on your first 5 possessions, when you score touchdowns on your first 4 possessions, and then you kick a field goal on the 5th one, it's hard to stop another team. When you're down 31-7, I think that's about when most people tuned out.
Right. Does it need to be moved? We were talking about that earlier. Does it need to be moved so that championship game is played before Wild Card Weekend in the NFL?
Yes, I would move it up. I think we got to move it up. I think that there'll be more interest if we get this thing done before the NFL playoffs start. And that's what we used to do, right? Mm-hmm. Like it would, and you would still struggle because you were dealing with NFL Week 18 and the playoff push. I would like not playing it on Monday as well. If there was a way to clear the deck, and maybe if the NFL was a good partner and allowed them to play the game on a Saturday and not have NFL Saturday games.
Right.
But the later you get into the schedule, the harder it is to compete with the NFL.
Well, I'm still okay. I would be okay if they move that to a Friday before the NFL got started and did a Friday night, and they're the only thing out there, and then you don't have to worry about getting up the next morning. You know, I've never understood the Monday night championship games in football or basketball because it makes it tough, especially when they start.
I agree, and that's part of what they're dealing with. And then we had talked about on here. I know I've been a strong proponent of compressing the playoff calendar.
Yes.
Because 7 weeks. But here's the thing: I kind of learned when I was out there. Coaches don't necessarily see it that way. They like the extra break because they like having their kids on campus over winter break, and they like the fact that some of those injuries can heal. You give them a little bit longer of time to get some guys that are fresh. So, I mean, that's something to keep in mind. So they're definitely not changing it next year. Everything is scheduled next year to be the same. The title game being Miami. It'll be another long season. But, the year after, we'll see if they get into some real changes.
Bill, this is for you. Had mentioned long season just now, and really nothing changing. Obviously between now and next year, they've got it pretty much set. And when I was watching Ohio State, they just looked like they were rested. And what I mean by that is, even though they played the 3 games with the two-back system, I say two-back system, with the 2 backs and just the way the wideouts moved, as fresh as the defense looked, they just looked different than the other teams. The other teams, when I watched them, they all looked exhausted. Now, Notre Dame didn't look so much that way. They just got beat by a much better team. But do you think Ohio State, maybe with, some of the, the ability to have 2, great backs in there to do things, and it was just too much – there was just too much for anybody to handle in a long-term, drawn-out season like that. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, and I think that's going to be something to watch in the future, this idea that have competitive depth like they do. I mean, I always tell people, like they say recruiting rankings don't matter. To me, maybe not for one player,
right?
But when you accumulate as much 4- and 5-star talent as they do,
right,
miss that many times. So, yeah, it's like Alabama had the same machine going. So, yeah, I would say there's something to that. They definitely look, and some of that's weight room and training and how they do have one of the better, if not the best, strength coach in the United States in Mickey Marotti.
Yeah, he probably – you're right. He probably is. I mean, that's a good – yeah, for sure.
Is there so everything's set for next season. We know that. But moving forward, they're going to start talking about how do we clean this thing up. They've got a good thing, but how do they clean it up? I threw out a suggestion this morning that would make it fairly easy to fix. I like getting away from conference championship games and adding 4 games in a playoff round at home sites because I think that generates more money than conference championship games do. Also, because we've gotten to these huge conferences, if you went back, because of the expanded playoff, if you went back to 2 divisions and the winner of each division got a playoff spot, would that not clean some of this up and at least give some parity so that everybody that finished at the top of their schedule at least played everybody that was inside of their schedule to be able to win, I guess, their little pod or division, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
They're not getting away with these big, huge conferences. It's too much money.
Yeah, right. Like, so the Big Ten had a really good year. They had 18 teams.
Yeah.
Didn't think it would work. They got 4 playoff teams. They got their second straight national champion. They've got coast-to-coast TV ratings. Things work in the Big Ten right now. So I think that's going to continue to be the case. I don't know that will change much, but we definitely – I'm with you on the conference championship games. I don't think in this format, especially if we go to 14 or 16 teams, I'm not sure we need those anymore.
Right.
But they have to find a way to recoup the money. I guess an extra playoff, like the 16 teams would, in theory, make up for that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's basically what I'm saying is there needs to be a better way. We don't really say argue. We disagree because he wants the best teams in there, but I want the best teams in there too, but I don't want it because they've got a pedigree or because they're from the SEC or because the top 6 teams in the SEC can beat anybody except the top 6 teams in the Big Ten. I don't want an SEC Big Ten complete ownership of college football. So there has to be some way to come up with I like to earn my way in. I've told you before, never wanted my kids to participate in cheerleading, in diving, in gymnastics. I didn't want anything that was opinion-based. I want the committee to go away. I want you to say, okay, you win this, you get to go. You win this, you get to go. And I don't know why it's so hard to get there because the other divisions in college football have done it for years and been successful at it.
Fair, but the difference being, Division III, I know a little bit about that growing up here with Mount Union. When they went on their run, it was like, well, Mount Union's going to win. Too bad to everybody else. You had a nice season. So, but they do allow other teams from that conference into the playoff. And I think that's something you need the committee for, whether it's the committee or a combination of a computer model that awards teams, whatever. I do think we're going to end up with 14 to 16 teams anyway.
Yep.
So once that happens, if you're the 17th team and you're complaining about being in, it's kind of how I feel about the NCAA tournament. Once you're at 69 instead of 68, there's only so much complaining you can do.
But then that's what I'm saying. If you had the 8 divisions and that gave you half of your field that they earned their way in by playing their schedule and winning their schedule out, I don't really care who you put in the other 8 because the chances of them actually winning it are fairly slim, but at least I feel like I got the best 8 that I could get because they played what they were supposed to do. They did what they were supposed to do to earn their way in. I want you to earn your way in.
But see, on that scenario, we didn't have a conference champion in the national championship.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right, and that's what I'm saying. I don't want a conference championship. I want you to play a schedule.
No, I mean,
and I want the winner of that schedule to get into the playoffs.
The conference champion wasn't in the national playoff game.
Yeah.
That's the dilemma to your point.
But that's because that's the way they set up, and that's not right. That won't work.
And
that's what I'm saying.
Bill's saying is whether it's a computer model or a committee. My thing is take the 1s and 2s. Eventually try to form 8 conferences and take the 1s and 2s. Or if you have a conference,
I'm okay with that.
Like the Big Ten. And let me tell you something. That's a great assessment Bill gave about how they are, coast to coast and how it works. So why not have 2 divisions and take the top 2 in each division and then put them in? You see what I'm saying? Like, hey, I'm not saying it's perfect, but I'm just trying to get to something that is not so much of an eyeball test if we're not going to have the best eyes on it.
That's correct. That's where my problem comes from.
And to your point, like one of the, somebody that follows the Big Ten pretty closely, if they were to go to and add 2 more and get to 20, then to me you do that. You split the conference into 2 sets of 10. Now, some people might not like that because you join the Big Ten to play, like USC joined the Big Ten for those big money games against Ohio State, Michigan, et cetera. Oregon, same deal. Right. But, Penn State and Nebraska as well. But at the same time, you get some, when you have that many teams, you could probably get away with doing it that way. And you have these super conferences that we talk about. SEC, same deal. I think the SEC ran into the problem of the SEC actually no longer has a dominant team. Right. Georgia's closest thing to that. And had a lot of parity from 2 to 10. And that's why teams lost more games, is you had a little more parity within the conference.
Right.
But one of the other things that solves, Bill, if you get to what we call 2 divisions inside of each conference, and they each play the same amount of divisional games, I'm going to call it divisional games, I don't care if they go out and play an FCS team. It don't matter. It doesn't count. I just want to know what they do with like competition. I want to know how they compete with teams in their division, and then they win that out. Then they've earned a spot to go compete for something bigger, and that's what I'm trying to get to, because right now, it's almost a guessing game, and I've said it before. I like the BCS better than anything. The only thing I didn't like about the BCS, it was only 2 teams, because it was a formula. It didn't come to eyeballs. It measured things, and it measured like categories. So, We talked about when we first started today. We've got a good product. I think this was a huge success for this 12-team playoff, but there has to be some tweaks. What do you see in tweaks for NIL, for the transfer portal, moving the dates, how many times it's opened up? What do you see?
I don't know the transfer portal will change much. I think it should. But I think once we guardrail NIL and get to a point where it's almost like they're signing contracts, then yeah, we can do that. Playoff just needs to reseed and shorten, and we've already kind of talked about that. They need to reseed these teams properly, and that way you don't have Oregon playing Ohio State or like I was pointing out, Oregon has lost one home game the last 3 years. They probably could have used a home game, and so we work out those things there. Not too much. I mean, the NIL, we just need guardrails, and everybody says, well, what are those guardrails? Well, to me, it's make players sign 1 to 2 year contracts. And, we say we come up with these numbers. I've never seen one contract.
Exactly.
That's available.
Exactly.
So we have no idea what they're ranking.
And, Bill, it used to be, and you know this because I signed one, it used to be the National Letter of Intent, right? And then it got outside of that with the NIL, and it went back. There has to be what's working now is going to end up hurting college football because and you know this. You're a football guy. You know this. You grew up in Ohio, and you know it better than anybody. People get disinterested if things just keep flipping around every year. We won the championship. Well, yeah, but you went in the portal and picked up the 20 best players. And nobody's really after a few years of that, people are like, hey, well, here we go again. Yeah, it's
right.
Yeah.
And I saw something Taylor Lewan was talking about last night on his podcast where, he's a Michigan guy, but he was happy for Jack Sawyer. Jack Sawyer.
Right.
Columbus Central Ohio kid, Columbus till he die, that kind of kid. And you want this sport to be about ton of those kids, that would live and die with the program. Now, it's got a little bit of a mercenary feel to it. Ohio State picked up the right guys.
Yeah,
right? I'll give them credit.
Junkins was an amazing pickup. God,
they had a loaded roster that added a few really good pieces on top, and and Will Howard delivered. But
yes, he did.
Yeah, that's the game now.
Right.
Like you said, the more times we see teams do that, I think, people will just say, well, I can do that on Sunday and watch the NFL.
Yeah. Let me kick to the NFL for just a second before we let you go. Got conference championships coming up. I don't think anybody's more surprised than the Washington Commanders to be in this championship game. You guys have picked the Eagles over the Commanders 31-24, and you've picked the Bills over the Chiefs 28-26.
It's a great pick.
I like it. I felt bad for Detroit. The only good part about Detroit getting beat is I didn't want a Super Bowl to come down to Detroit and the Bills because I'd have trouble picking one because they both deserve it. But at least Detroit would have gotten there. But, the Bills are my sentimental favorite, not because I've been a Bills fan, but just because of where they've been and trying to get back to where they're at now. Give me your perspective on the two games coming up Sunday.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think the Bills are due. I get it. All this talk about the refs and the conspiracy and the Chiefs. You got to beat the Chiefs. I think they're due. I think they're due. Now that's made to look foolish because I know just how good Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are in the playoffs.
Yep.
And then I think I love this Washington run, and I love what Jaden Daniels is doing. I just think Philly at home is going to be able to run the ball with Saquon Barkley. Last time they played, Jalen Hurts left with a concussion.
Right.
That Philly defense has been really good. So I do think we're going to get – I actually had, and I'm not patting myself on the back, I did have Eagles and Bills before the playoffs started when we did our – not before the season. I probably had something – I don't even remember what I had before the season, but it wasn't that. Like Chiefs and Lions like everybody else.
Right.
But I definitely had Eagles and Bills before, and so I'm not going to go away from those picks, and we'll see if it happens.
I think, Bill, we're just letting you go here, but I think one thing that I noticed, and just going to share and get your thoughts on it, with the NFL season as long as it is now, it's more of it's even, become more of a longevity play With obviously with the injuries, and the older guys get playing this game, the harder it is to come back. And my thing on it is I think the NFL might be too long right now because we're seeing a lot of the younger players, which is fine, being able to bounce back and persevere and make it through. Where the older ones, I got to tell you, if I was coaching NFL right now, I'd probably, my older players that were my my go-tos, I would probably sit them out in week 4 and week 8. Because they're playing too many games and their bodies can't handle that. And as a former whatever. Walks around and limps, 9 knee surgeries, all this stuff, right? I can tell you that there might be some adjustment to this after 4 or 5 years from the players' union really stepping up because it's going to shorten a lot of careers and potentially take some good football away from us.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's why when you add more games to the college level, I have concerns.
Yeah.
When it went to a 17-game season, I had more concerns. But it is a long season. These teams definitely got to manage that. And I agree. I mean, but the answer is always money.
Yes.
Yes. That when you ask why are they doing this, the answer is they want more money, and that's what's going on.
But doesn't the most of the money come from TV contracts on all of this stuff? And the reason I say that, because with the NFL, I didn't care for the 17th game, and I really don't want them to go to an 18th game. What I want them to do is expand the regular season by 2 weeks and give 2 more open dates, because then I've got more football longer term, but I'm not putting their bodies through all of this. To me, that would have made more sense, because that would give the TV revenue an extra 2 weeks of revenue without putting the stress and strain on the players' bodies.
I think Joe Burrow said something like that, and he got kind of ridiculed. He's like, take it like the All-Star or the Pro Bowl at midseason, and he's right, because, again, you're dealing with people's bodies. You mentioned it, 9 knee surgeries, and, so many players that their bodies start to break down. It's a really interesting point you made about Ohio State, because they had the depth necessary. And I remember Ryan Day saying before the Tennessee game, Quinshon and Travion are fresh now. So
exactly.
It all works together, and it's definitely part of the game, no question.
Yep. Bill, we appreciate your time as always, and look forward to talking with you next week. We'll have a Super Bowl set up that's ready to go. And the only bad part about it, we'll have to wait 2 weeks to get to the Super Bowl. I don't like that one either, but that's just me. I don't like a whole lot of everything. But it is what it is. Thank you for your time. Glad you had a good trip to Ohio State, and congratulations to the Buckeyes. I respect Ohio State. I respect Ryan Day, but I don't have to like him doing it. He needs to get rid of the Just for Men beard treatment, and he'll be okay.
Oh, my God.
Sounds good. I'll talk to you guys next week.
Thanks, Bill. That's Bill Bender. All right, that's my final zinger for today. Have a good one. The boys will be in here in the morning, and we'll be back sometime next week, I'm pretty sure. Have a good one.